If you're attending an in-person convention, summit, or event, you want to make sure you're aware of who's going to be there and make connections before you even set foot inside of the convention. Whether you're attending this entirely by yourself, you've got a person going with you, or you're bringing an entire team with you, because you do not want to show up with a group of people and only speak to that group of people. Even if you've got people with you to keep you busy and keep you occupied and keep you entertained, you do not want to just focus on your group. You're there to make connections and have conversations. So whether you're going solo or you're going with a group of people, you have to make sure you're making the time and effort to know who's going to be at this event and reach out to them in advance so that you can form valuable connections while you are there. And it starts with researching the event. You need to know who owns this event, who has created this event, who is in charge, and you need to know the speakers. This is going to be incredibly important because if you happen to see them out in the wild, you can stop and talk to them. You can have conversations with them. You can point out who is who. A lot of people will show up to these events and not have any idea who is in charge or who the speakers are. And so when they're conversing with other people, they're not going to have any idea who they're talking about. Now, you, as someone who is smart enough to do your research, now knows who they are, what they look like, what they do, and you can point them out to people. Have conversations about them, but also have conversations with them. Now, you want to make sure that you're aware of who they are, not just because they're connected to the convention, but you want to follow them on their platforms as well. So go over to their social media. I want you to interact with them on their social media. Leave comments on their content. Show up in their space. We're making sure they know who you are too. You don't just want to know who these people are, you want them to be aware of your presence. Now, you may or may not have time to interact with them at the convention, and if they're a really big name person, they probably won't have time to talk to everybody in person on a personal level. But you need to make sure you're showing up in their space. So get on their social media a couple of weeks before the event and start interacting with them. There's a very good chance they are going to pay attention to this. And especially if you drop a message saying that, hey, I'm going to be there, they might be on the lookout for you, or at the very least be able to recognize you or your name when you show up and have conversations with them. Now, I highly recommend sending these people a DM. I actually want you to get in their space. Not only are we leaving comments and we're interacting with them, but we are showing up in their space and saying, hello, I am, and I do, I am coming to the convention. I'm really excited. You're just introducing yourself and showing them who you are and what you do and how you're doing it. So you're letting them know how you could potentially be valuable to them, which actually brings us to that next point, asking if you can help. It's great to introduce yourself and to get that information out there so that they recognize you and your name and what you do and know a little bit about you before you jump into this conversation at a convention. But if you can make yourself valuable, all of a sudden you've just elevated your worth in their mindset. Now, maybe they'll allow you to help and maybe they won't be able to allow you to help, but this will speak very, very highly of you so that when you jump into conversations with them or are in their presence, this could lead to better conversations, better connections, introductions for you, all sorts of things. So if you are available to do something and you want to do something, volunteer to do it. I love to volunteer to help document the day for that person while they're speaking if I know I'm going to be in their room listening to their workshop or their conversation that they're having. So I'll volunteer to record it or take photos. Or if they're going to be recording it for themselves, I'll volunteer to watch over their cameras and just stand by it so nobody trips over it. Any way that you can make yourself helpful to them is going to mean a lot. I know when people reach out to me and they volunteer to help me out, not only do I remember them, but I'll pull them in. I'll give them really good opportunities to work with me or to do extra helpful things. I make sure that I'm taking care of them and I'm getting them good connections and conversations. I'm interacting with them. I'm following up with them. It's a really good opportunity to make new friends, to help somebody out, and to get elevated in the estimation of a lot of people, especially if you are going to be helpful, to make sure that people are getting their documentation or that you are doing something to assist them and make their time even better at the convention as well. Now, in order to make other friends before you end up going to these conventions, I really want you to get into Facebook groups and Discords or wherever those things happen to be. Usually, conventions will have a Facebook group or a Discord or something attached to it. Within there, you can have conversations with people. And a lot of people will just jump in and say, I'm just going to read the posts. Maybe I'll interact with the posts a little bit, but they don't really make themselves known. One of the best things that I did as a speaker at a convention for my very first convention that I ever spoke at, I made myself known in the Facebook group. Now, remember, I'm an introvert. I don't like talking to people. I have to go out of my way to do that, and it takes effort for me. But I made sure I was showing up and commenting on other people's posts. And I made sure that I let people know who I was, what I was doing, why I was connected to the convention, that I was a speaker. These are the things we were going to be talking about. Here's how I can give you some suggestions and helpful tips and tricks for making your time better at the convention. I gave recommendations, all these things inside of the group. Now, I was going to this convention knowing only the owners of the group. I didn't know anybody else, but I walked into the building and literally everyone knew me. I had people I had never met or seen run up to me, get super excited. I got hugs, I got high fives, I got photos. From the very first second I set foot into this, I hadn't even spoken yet. And people recognized me and knew who I was and brought me into conversations. And we got to do some really cool things because I showed up in these Facebook groups. So I recommend that you are making posts. You can do something like suggesting meetups or documentation events during the convention, after the convention, before the convention. Remember, in one of our previous videos, we talked all about how the magic happens outside of the actual convention. It happens in the hallways. It happens at the hotel after the day has ended or before the day has started. Those outside of the convention moments are where the real connections, the real community is built. So you want to make sure that you're suggesting things like meetups. Hey, let's meet at the venue 15 minutes early and we'll do some group photos. Or, hey, let's go to dinner after the convention ends on Thursday. And you're making suggestions. I do recommend that you're suggesting some of these fun after hour events, and you can even, kind of create things as you go. So if you go to the convention and you kind of start to meet people, say, hey, let's go do some things together and pull people in as you go out to explore the neighborhood or explore the city or figuring out what you're going to be doing. Now, remember, when it comes to this, if you're an introvert, you may not want to take all these steps. So find an extrovert, whisper in their ear, hey, we should do something like this, and let them take the reins. They will run with it. It doesn't mean you have to do all the work here, but you can kind of inspire the idea to make the things happen. And again, if you can do these inside of the Facebook group beforehand, this is going to get your face, your voice, well, not your voice, your face, your name, your social media handles, all these things will make you recognizable at the events. So make sure you're getting into those Facebook groups or Discord groups to have those conversations in advance so people will recognize you and pull you into conversations, and you won't have to stand there like a little wallflower waiting and hoping someone will notice you. Now, on that note, you also want to learn about the attendees. So as you're in these groups, as you're having these conversations, you're going to be able to click on their profiles and learn about them. We're doing a little bit of social media stalking here. I want you to then go to their websites and learn about them. I want you to find their social medias, and you're going to follow them and interact with them. You can even DM them and say, hey, I'm going to be here too. I'm just excited that you are going as well, and I just wanted to say hi. You don't have to set anything up. You don't have to have any other conversations. Just say, hey, I see you're going. Just wanted to say hello. I'll be there too. Would love to grab a photo with you if we run into each other while we're there. Very easy conversations. Now, if you find people who are really cool that you really want to connect with, make a list. Make a list of people you want to try to meet and check it off on your phone. You can actually check these things off on your phone. Say, hey, I met Cindy and I met Larry and I met Kevin, and it was really, really awesome. And I actively tried to find these people because I knew I would be able to form collaborations with them outside of the convention later on. So find people you want to meet and do your best to meet them. Learn what they look like. Go through their Facebook photos. Figure out who they are and then do your best to meet them. You can reach out and say, hey, I'd really love to meet you and get a photo while we're there. Let's try to meet up at some point during the convention, or you can just say a simple hello, or you can just go out of your way to find them without reaching out to them in advance. But the more you can reach out in advance, the less it's like weird and awkward. Hey, I have been looking for you, but you don't know who I am. So learn about the attendees. Go to their websites. Go to their social media. There will be information. You can learn things. And then all of a sudden, you are the person who understands and knows these people in advance. You've taken the time and effort. It makes you look better, and it establishes a much better connection with them as well. Now, I highly recommend that you make a buddy before you go. It is easier to interact when you have somebody that you recognize. You don't have to go overboard with meeting people. You just need to make one friend, and then everything else gets easier. So if you are going by yourself, Or even if you're going with a group of people, find at least one person you can buddy up with. We are going to walk into these conventions and we don't want to stay inside of our little groups or our little bubble. We want to expand our social circle and find people that we can hang out with. Now, you can do that in the moment when you go to the convention, but y'all, it's easier if you meet people first. And it's a lot less pressure if you're meeting them through social media. Meeting people face to face can feel like a lot of pressure, especially when you have to be witty and come up with a creative conversation and all of these things. So if you can be on your phone and just DM them or chat with them before or interact with them in some way, now you've got that buffer of the internet. It's not a face to face conversation. It's not something you had to figure out a conversational point to react to in the moment because you've already got these conversations going. And because online, if they're not right there to respond, that's fine. And if you are not right there to respond, they understand it's going to take a hot minute for you to get back to them. There's a lot less pressure doing it online so that you can chat in advance. And when you show up, you can recognize each other and then spend a little time together. And then if you want to continue to spend time together, you can. And if you don't, you can find new people because there's lots of people around. But this is a really great way to understand who's going to be there and make you feel a little more comfortable when you step into these in-person conventions. We know at conventions, it can be really, really hard and really overwhelming because there's a lot of people and you want to connect with people, but it's hard to connect with people when they're in a big group talking or when you don't know anybody and all these things. So, it's taking a little bit of time and effort to understand who's in charge, who's speaking, and who's attending, doing a little bit of research and making yourself known in advance is a great way to take a ton of the pressure off of the conversations that will happen at the convention and allow you to feel more comfortable, have more easy connections and conversations, and then allow you to meet new people and do new things. A little bit of time and research is going to go a long way. Make sure you hit that subscribe and notification bell because we are continuing our series on in-person events and how to navigate them and make the most of them in our daily videos that are dropping, where we help teach you how to level up on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, live streaming, and with the tools and resources you need to take the time commitment out of your social media content creation so that you can get back to running your business and living your best life while still making money on social media, but you spent less time creating the content that makes you the money. We've got all the tips and tricks for you. And if you have questions on in-person events or social media strategy, drop them below. And I'll see you in the next episode.